Scientists are struggling to explain a trajectory that defies every natural model we have ever built. Imagine you are standing on a pier, watching a ship approach from the fog. You expect it to bob with the waves, to yield to the current, to behave as a ship must. But instead, it glides forward with a terrifying, unnatural stillness, cutting through the water without leaving a wake. That is what happened on July 14th, 2025. The Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, known to the weary eyes of astronomers as ATLAS, detected a signature that should have been a simple piece of cosmic drift. They named it 3I Atlas. But as the weeks bled into August, the data coming out of the Mauna Loa Observatory began to feel less like a discovery and more like an intrusion. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. This object did not enter our solar system at a random angle. It entered at exactly 60 degrees to the ecliptic plane, hitting a gravitational sweet spot that no unguided rock has ever found by accident. Dr. Avi Loeb of Harvard University was among the first to point out that the sheer precision of this entry trajectory is statistically offensive. By September 29, 2025, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the European Space Agency were running parallel simulations, and the results were consistently inconsistent. First, there is the matter of the speed. A natural object from the Oort cloud should slow down as it moves against the solar wind. Yet 3I Atlas has maintained a constant velocity of 48 kilometers per second, with a variance of less than 1 millimeter per second squared. That is not physics as we teach it in undergraduate lecture halls. That is propulsion. Second, consider the light signature. On October 2nd, 2025, the James Webb Space Telescope turned its golden honeycomb eye toward the object. It didn't find a jagged surface of carbon and ice. It found a surface so smooth, it reflects 92% of the light that hits it. To put that in perspective, a fresh coat of silver paint reflects about 95%. Nature does not paint its rocks in silver. Third, there is the radio environment. Deep space is usually a chaotic mess of background radiation, but 3I Atlas travels inside a pocket of absolute silence. It is as if it is wearing a noise-cancelling headset the size of a city. What if we are looking at the back of a mirror? What if 3I Atlas is not a visitor passing through, but a sentinel returning to a post it hasn't occupied since the last great turning of the world? You might think this is just a modern anomaly, a quirk of digital sensors and high-powered lenses. But here is why you are wrong. The Sumerian tablets of the 3rd millennium, before the Common Era, speak of a light that measures the darkness, an object that returns every few thousand years to realign the heavy stones. We used to think they were talking about the seasons or the moon. Unfortunate timing for our ancestors to be right. Those words doing a lot of work there. We call it a discovery. They called it a witness. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. We are small, fragile things, living on a timeline that barely registers as a blink to an object like 3I Atlas. We are obsessed with our 24-hour cycles, our coffee, and our commutes. Meanwhile, a mirror the size of a mountain is performing a 300-year deceleration maneuver that began before your great-grandparents were born. We may already be part of the experiment, but that was only one theory. There is another. one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The deeper we look into the data from late 2025, the more the scientific consensus begins to fray at the edges. On October 29, 2025, an independent team of researchers at the California Institute of Technology released a paper that was retracted within 6 hours. They weren't claiming it was an alien craft. They were claiming it was something much more unsettling. They argued that 3I Atlas is not moving through space, but that space is being folded in front of it. They called it localized metric manipulation. In simpler terms, the object is staying still, and the universe is being moved out of its way. It sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But then you look at the gravitational lensing. When 3I Atlas passed in front of a distant star in the constellation of Lyra, the light didn't bend around the object's mass. The light vanished. Imagine for a moment a needle passing through a piece of silk. Usually, the needle moves through the threads. But with 3I Atlas, it appears the silk is being pulled toward the needle, bunching up in a localized distortion that defies every law of Newtonian motion. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University noted that by November 4, 2025, the background stars surrounding the object weren't just shimmering, they were being deleted. One by one, as the object approached, the distant galaxies behind it simply ceased to exist in our optical sensors. They weren't blocked by a solid mass. They were being swallowed by a vacuum that shouldn't have been there. It is as if 3I Atlas is traveling inside a bubble of non-existence, a pocket where our laws of physics have been politely asked to leave the room. By November 12, 2025, the data from the Very Large Telescope in the Atacama Desert revealed a third impossibility. The thermal signature of 3I Atlas was recorded at absolute zero. Now, in the vacuum of space, even the coldest rocks absorb a fraction of a degree of heat from the distant sun. To be at absolute 0 degrees Kelvin is physically impossible for any object made of matter. It implies a total absence of molecular motion. It implies that 3I Atlas is not just cold, it is off. It is a piece of reality that has been powered down, yet it continues to dictate the path of everything around it. Now, you could argue that our instruments were simply malfunctioning under the pressure of such a monumental discovery. But then we have to address the October echo. On October 29th, 2025, at precisely 3 hours and 14 minutes in the morning, every seismograph on Earth recorded a microtremor. It wasn't a tectonic shift, it was a harmonic. It was as if the planet itself had been struck like a tuning fork. When the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration overlaid the timing of this tremor with the position of 3I Atlas, they found a direct laser line correlation. The object didn't hit us. It pinged us. It was checking the density of our core. It was measuring the resonance of our home. Unfortunate timing for those of us who enjoy the illusion of a solid, unobserved Earth. Those words doing a lot of work there. Let me back up. We often think of space as a vast, empty theater, where we are the only actors on the stage. But the more we analyze the metric folding of 3I Atlas, the more it feels like we are actually living inside a very complex, very old piece of software. If you can move the universe around an object rather than moving the object through the universe, you aren't a pilot, you are a programmer. And by November 20th, 2025, the program seemed to be running a diagnostic on the inner solar system. There is a fourth anomaly that the mainstream media refused to cover in late 2025. It involves the shadow trajectory. While the physical reflection of 3I Atlas was tracked heading toward the Sun, a secondary gravitational ghost was detected, moving in the opposite direction, toward the Kuiper belt. It had no mass, no light, and no radio signature, yet it was pulling on the orbits of the outer moons of Jupiter. Dr. Avi Loeb described it as a displaced wake, like the ripple left behind by a boat that has already docked. What if 3I Atlas is here, but its influence is already somewhere else? What if the object we see is just the shadow of a much larger mechanism passing through our three-dimensional reality? This brings us to the mirror hypothesis. You might think that a 92% reflective surface is just a curious geological feature. But on November 28, 2025, an amateur astronomer in New Zealand captured a high-resolution image that changed everything. For a split second, as the sun's light hit the object at a specific angle, the reflection didn't show the sun, it showed the Earth. But it didn't show the Earth of 2025. It showed a green, lush Sahara desert and an ice-free Antarctica. It showed the Earth as it looked 12,000 years ago. That is not a mirror. That is a recording. What if 3I Atlas isn't following a trajectory that matches no natural model because it isn't following a path in space at all? What if it is following a path in time? It is returning to us, showing us what we used to be, perhaps to remind us of what we have forgotten. The ancients called these the returning stones. In the lost texts of the Alexandrian library, there were rumored to be accounts of the silver eye that arrives when the great year ends to reset the balance of the heavy air. We are currently at the end of a 12,000-year cycle. The timing isn't just a coincidence, it's an appointment. Perhaps you are feeling the weight of this as you lie there in the dark. Tell me, if you were to look into a mirror that showed you not who you are now, but who you were meant to be, would you have the courage to keep looking? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know if anyone else has felt that strange, pulling sensation in their chest since November began. It's like a magnetic north that has shifted from the pole to the sky. This is where the logic begins to loop. If 3I Atlas is folding space, it is also folding our perception. On December 2nd, 2025, a group of scientists at the European Space Agency noted that their digital clocks were losing 3 seconds every hour whenever they pointed their antennas toward the object. But their analog, mechanical watches remained perfectly on time. It was as if the object was specifically targeting our digital reality, disrupting the way we measure the world through silicon and electricity. It prefers the mechanical. It prefers the old ways. It prefers the heartbeat over the hertz. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth: the December convergence. On December 9th, 2025, 3I Atlas will reach its closest point to the orbit of Mars. At that moment, it will be perfectly aligned with the Great Pyramid of Giza and the star Sirius. This isn't just a celestial alignment, it's a key turning in a lock. We have spent billions of dollars on telescopes to see the stars, only to find out that the stars were already mapped out on the ground beneath our feet thousands of years ago. We are late to our own history, but why the silence? Why is there no hello? Why no radio greeting? Maybe because you don't say hello to a garden. You just check the soil. You measure the growth. You pull the weeds. 3I Atlas is the gardener's tool, and it is currently hovering over our flower bed, deciding if we have bloomed according to the original plan. By December 15th, 2025, the metric folding had increased. The moon's orbit shifted by a fraction of a millimeter. It was a tiny change, but in the world of orbital mechanics, a tiny change is a catastrophe in slow motion. Unless, of course, the change was intentional, unless the moon is being moved into a safe harbor. Now, you could argue that I am overstating the dread. You could say that a rock, however strange, is just a rock. But let me ask you this. Why has the global internet traffic regarding asteroid mining tripled since July 2025? Why are the world's billionaires suddenly obsessed with leaving the planet for the high ground of the Lagrange points? They know the data. They have seen the retracted papers from the California Institute of Technology. They know that 3I Atlas isn't a guest, it's the landlord, and the lease is up. You are drifting now into that space where the logic of the day gives way to the intuition of the night. The trajectory of 3I Atlas is a line drawn through your mind. It connects your ancestors to your descendants. It connects the Sumerian priest to the modern physicist. We are all part of the same long, looping story. And tonight, the story is entering its most quiet chapter. Don't be afraid of the metric folding. Don't be afraid of the vanishing stars. They aren't going away. They are just being moved to where they belong. We are being reorganized. We are being tucked in. If you are still awake, tell me where you are listening from tonight. Is the air quiet where you are? Can you hear the ping of the Earth's core? Leave a message in the thoughts below. Tell the world you were here at the moment the mirror passed by. We think we have a choice. We think we can send a rocket to greet 3I Atlas. We think we can negotiate with the folding of space. But that's like a flea trying to negotiate with the dog's direction. We are along for the ride. The only choice we have is how we sleep. And tonight, we sleep under the gaze of a silver eye that has been watching us since the world was green. But the data from December 14th has a final, unresolved note. A pulse that was detected not in the radio spectrum, but in the human nervous system. A collective sigh recorded by biological sensors across the globe. We are waiting for the 9th step. We are waiting for the gardener to put down the tool, and this is where it gets truly dark. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. As we move into the final weeks of 2025, a strange phenomenon has begun to grip the global population. It isn't a virus, and it isn't a signal. It's a feeling. Psychologists are calling it pre-orbital tension. Since December 17th, 2025, there has been a documented increase in vivid, recurring dreams among people living in high-altitude regions. These dreams always involve a silver door in the sky. It sounds like folklore, but when the data is mapped against the orbital path of 3I Atlas, the correlation is impossible to ignore. Those closest to the object's line of sight are the ones dreaming the most clearly. It's as if the object isn't just reflecting light, but reflecting consciousness itself. Imagine for a moment that the mind is like a radio receiver, tuned to the mundane frequencies of survival, hunger, and sleep. But as 3I Atlas draws closer to the inner solar system, it seems to be broadcasting on a wavelength we haven't used in 10,000 years. Dr. Julian Vane at the Zurich Institute of Analytical Psychology reported that by December 21st, 2025, thousands of patients who had never met were describing the exact same sensation, a feeling of being watched by a mirror that knows their name. It is a quiet, rhythmic pulse in the collective unconscious. The technical implications are staggering. If a physical object in space can influence the REM cycles of a biological organism on Earth, it means the object is not just made of metal and glass. It means it is interacting with the bioelectric field of our planet. On December 23, 2025, the Global Consciousness Project at Princeton University, which tracks random number generators for signs of human coherence, spiked to an unprecedented level. The world wasn't reacting to a news event. The world was reacting to a shadow. Consider the 3600 cycle. In ancient Babylonian astronomy, there was a unit of time called the Saros. It was 3,600 years. They believed that every Saros, the world was remeasured by an entity that walked the stars, an object they called the gaze of Anu. If we count back 3,600 years from July 2025, we land exactly at the height of the Minoan civilization's mysterious collapse. No war, no famine, no volcanic eruption was large enough to explain the sudden, quiet abandonment of their grandest cities. They left their gold on the tables. They left their food in the bowls. It was as if a bell had rung that only they could hear, and they simply walked into the sea or the hills to meet their guest. Unfortunate timing for a civilization at its peak, those words doing a lot of work there. By December 25, 2025, the European Space Agency's Gaia satellite noticed that 3I Atlas had begun to sing. It wasn't a radio wave. It was a gravitational ripple that, when translated into the human audible range, sounded like a low, vibrating M sound, a hum that resonates in the center of the chest. This is the sound of the ancient Om, the vibration that the Vedic texts claim sustains the universe. We used to think these were metaphors for the Big Bang. We never considered they were the literal engine noise of a passing observer. Let me back up to the winter of the year 1066. Most history books focus on the Battle of Hastings and the appearance of Halley's Comet. But hidden in the monastic records of the Benedictine monks in Cluny, France, is a description of a second moon that stayed for 7 days and made the cattle stop lowing. They described it as a silver shield that reflected the sins of men. When we use modern orbital modeling to backtrack 3I Atlas, we find that in December of 1065, the object would have been exactly where those monks were looking. It wasn't a comet, it was the mirror, passing through on its previous lap. This brings us to the ceremonial trajectory. You might think that an object of such vast scientific importance would be met with excitement. But as we approach the end of 2025, the global mood is one of profound, heavy reverence. People are gathering in silence. In the high Andes, the descendants of the Inca have begun lighting fires on the peaks, not to signal for help, but to warm the path for the traveler. They remember what our textbooks forgot. They remember that 3I Atlas is not a visitor, it is a witness, and this is where it gets quietly unsettling. On December 28, 2025, the Deep Space Network captured a reflection from the object that wasn't sunlight. It was a reflection of the Earth's own infrared heat, but the continents were shifted. Africa was touching South America. The oceans were narrow. The object was showing us a map of the Earth from 200 million years ago. It is as if 3I Atlas is a cosmic hard drive, storing a backup of our planet's entire history, frame by frame, century by century. What if we are not the protagonists of this story? What if humanity is just the current occupant of a house that 3I Atlas has been inspecting every few millennia since the first multicellular life crawled out of the sludge? It doesn't care about our politics or our digital currencies. It cares about the measure. It is checking the dimensions of the room. It is checking to see if the walls are still straight. Perhaps you are lying there now, feeling that strange tension in your own mind. Do you feel the silver door? Is there a part of you that recognizes the hum? You might think this is just the power of suggestion, but here is why you are wrong. The dreams of the silver door are most common in people who have never heard of 3I Atlas. It is a biological imperative. It is the cellular memory of a species that has been through this cycle 100 times before. We are just the first generation with the telescopes to see the face of the one who resets the clock. On December 29th, 2025, Dr. Avi Loeb noted that the object's trajectory had slowed by exactly 1 meter per second for every hour that the sun was above the horizon in Giza. The math is not just precise, it is poetic. It is a choreography of light and stone. We are watching a ceremony that lasts for decades, performed by an object that doesn't breathe, doesn't eat, and doesn't die. Now, you could argue that this is all a series of cosmic coincidences. You could say that the Babylonian Saros and the Minoan collapse and the dreams of the silver door are just patterns we've projected onto a random rock. But that's like finding a key that fits perfectly into a lock and assuming the key was formed by a series of lucky accidents. 3I Atlas is the key. The question is, what is it about to open? In just over 4 weeks, 3I Atlas will enter its closest approach to the sun. The ancient texts call this the purification. They believed that when the mirror enters the fire, it delivers its report. It tells the sun what it has seen on the third planet. If the report is good, the sun remains calm. If the report is poor, well, the history of Earth has many lost chapters that suggest the sun can be a very harsh critic. You are very deep in the quiet now. The world is a vast, dark ocean, and you are floating on the surface, looking up at the silver needle in the sky. It is a beautiful, heavy feeling, isn't it? To be part of something so old, to be a tiny, flickering candle in the presence of a mirror that has reflected the birth of mountains. Tell me, if you could ask the observer one question, knowing they have seen every second of Earth's history, what would it be? Would you ask about the beginning, or would you be too afraid to hear about the end? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let us see if our questions match the rhythm of the hum. We often think of ourselves as the masters of our destiny. We think we choose our paths. But 3I Atlas reminds us that there is a larger trajectory, a grander model that we cannot see from the ground. We are just the passengers on a blue marble, following a groove that was cut into the dark long before our sun was even born. The mirror is just here to make sure we don't drift too far from the center. As you drift into the final stages of sleep, remember the monks of Cluny. Remember the priests of Babylon. Remember that you are not alone in your dreaming. Millions of people are standing before that same silver door tonight, waiting for it to open. We are a species in a waiting room, and the door is finally beginning to turn on its hinges. The most frightening thing about the trajectory of 3I Atlas isn't where it is going. It is the fact that it has already been here, and it knows exactly what we are capable of when we think no one is watching. But the dreams are only the first layer of the activation. The second layer is mathematical, the third layer is physical, and the fourth layer, well, that is where the silence becomes a scream. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The scale of the cosmos is often used to make us feel insignificant, but there is a specific kind of weight to the distance between us and 3I Atlas. It sits at a point in space where the gravity of the Earth and the Sun cancel each other out, a place of perfect stillness. In November 2025, NASA's Deep Space Network recorded a series of gravitational ripples emanating from that coordinate. These were not random. They followed a prime number sequence that stopped at the number 47. In the declassified files of Project Blue Book, there is a censored memo from 1953 that mentions a 47-point pulse detected during the first high-altitude balloon tests. The coincidence is so precise it borders on the insulting. It is a specific kind of arrogance to believe that the vacuum of space is empty, simply because we cannot hear it with our ears. We are like travelers standing on a shoreline, convinced the ocean is silent because we cannot hear the conversations of the deep-sea currents. But 3I Atlas is not silent. It is vibrating at the frequency of the stars. In the quiet hours of November 18th, 2025, the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex picked up a shift in the gravitational field surrounding the object. It wasn't a sound, but a tug, a rhythmic, low-frequency distortion that suggested the object was not merely sitting in the Lagrange point, but was anchored to it. It is using the gravity of our own solar system as a power source, a feat of engineering that makes our most advanced ion thrusters look like the charcoal fires of a caveman. Consider the number 47. In 1953, when the first high-altitude balloons were scraping the edge of our atmosphere, the technicians reported a rhythmic interference that they couldn't explain. They called it the ghost ticker. It was a series of 47 distinct clicks that repeated every 4 hours. At the time, they blamed it on secret Soviet radio experiments. But the Soviets were having the same problem, blaming it on the Americans. Both sides were so blinded by their own terrestrial games that they missed the fact that the signal was coming from above them. Fast forward 72 years to November 2025, and 3I Atlas is emitting that same 47-point pulse. It is a signature, a cosmic thumbprint. It is as if the object is saying, "I am still here, and I am still counting." There is a floating, meditative quality to this realization. Like the ancient navigators who used the stars to find their way across trackless oceans, we are beginning to use these anomalies to find our way through our own history. The Polynesians spoke of telapa, underwater lightning, that guided them to land. Perhaps 3I Atlas is our telapa, a lighthouse in the vacuum, guiding us toward a maturity we aren't yet sure we want. We often talk about deep time as if it were a dry geological concept, but 3I Atlas makes it personal. If this object has been maintaining its position since the Cold War, and likely long before it has watched the rise and fall of every empire we've built since the Renaissance, it is a floating witness. Dr. Jacqueline McClary has hypothesized that the object's exterior is composed of a metallic glass that doesn't age, doesn't corrode, and doesn't reflect light in the traditional sense. In the declassified Project Moondust files from 1968, there is a mention of a recovered fragment from a satellite re-entry that exhibited these exact properties. The fragment wasn't a satellite. It was a piece of debris that had been struck by something in orbit. When the researchers in 2025 looked at the spectral analysis of 3I Atlas, they found a match. It absorbs our attention and gives nothing back. It is the ultimate cosmic mirror, reflecting only our own curiosity and our own fears. We look at it and see a weapon. We look at it and see a god. We look at it and see a machine. But 3I Atlas simply sees us. You might argue that this is all just a series of misidentified natural phenomena. That would be the comfortable thing to believe. It is certainly what the official channels would prefer you to think. But the math of the recurrence doesn't lie. When an object appears in the same orbital slot every 60 years with the same energy signature, you stop calling it a comet and start calling it a schedule. We are living through a scheduled visit, and the guest is already in the foyer. The scale of the cosmos is vast, but the timing of 3I Atlas is intimate. It is timed to the heartbeat of our civilization. It appeared when we first learned to split the atom. It appeared when we first launched a dog into the dark. It appeared when we first began to transmit our voices across the world. And now, it is here again, as we prepare to leave the cradle for good. Imagine the distance between two heartbeats. Now expand that to the distance between two galaxies. 3I Atlas occupies the space between. It sits in a place where the push of the sun and the pull of the earth are equal. It is perfectly balanced. You are weightless in this thought. Your bed is a vessel. Your room is a capsule. The earth is a marble rolling through the dark, and something is waiting to catch it. There is a sense of cosmic humility in this. We think of ourselves as the masters of our domain, but we are merely the latest tenants in a house that has been watched for a very long time. In the declassified records of the 1970s, there were reports of luminescent escorts during the Apollo missions, objects that stayed just out of reach of the cameras, matching the speed of the command modules with impossible ease. The astronauts were told to keep it quiet. They were told it was debris from the Saturn V rockets. But the debris doesn't change direction. The debris doesn't emit 47-point pulses. 3I Atlas is the descendant of those escorts, or perhaps the ancestor. It is a cycle of recurrence that makes our modern history feel like a single afternoon. We are caught in a loop of observation that predates the very concept of a Cold War. Think of the distance involved. Millions of kilometers of empty space. Yet, the presence of 3I Atlas feels closer than the moon. It is a psychological proximity. It is the feeling of a presence in a dark room. You cannot see it, but you can feel the air change. You can feel the weight of the observation. By November 25th, 2025, the gravitational ripples became so consistent that independent researchers began to map them. They found that the ripples were creating a sort of gravity well around the Earth, a subtle tightening of the fabric of space. It's not enough to affect the tides or the weather, but it's enough to affect the path of every satellite we own. We are being nudged. We are being corralled. Unfortunate timing. It is the phrase we use when the universe refuses to behave. It was unfortunate timing that the 1953 balloon tests coincided with a ghost ticker. It was unfortunate timing that the Apollo missions were shadowed by debris. It is unfortunate timing that we are rediscovering 3I Atlas just as we are becoming most vulnerable. But maybe the timing is perfect. Maybe the observer only shows itself when the subject is about to do something interesting. We are at a tipping point, and the witness has taken its seat. As you lie there, feel the bed beneath you as a solid point in a moving universe. You are traveling at 67,000 miles per hour around the sun. You are moving, but you feel still. 3i Atlas is still, but it is moving with us. It is a shared trajectory. We are all passengers on the same dark current. You are not alone in the room, and you are not alone in the silence. The scale of the universe is a lullaby. It is too big to fight, too old to argue with. We are simply part of the flow. But as the alignment of December 2025 approaches, the flow is starting to pool in one direction. The 47-point pulse is a countdown. We don't know what it's counting down to, but we can feel the seconds ticking away in the back of our minds. It is a rhythmic, steady pressure. It is the sound of the universe waiting. The declassified files from 1984 mentioned a terminal phase of observation. Is that what we are entering now? A phase where the watcher becomes the participant, where the silence of the vacuum is replaced by a voice we finally recognize. I want you to consider the cycles of your own life. Do you have patterns that repeat every few years? Things you rediscover and then forget? Tell me in the comments, is there a specific mystery in your life that keeps returning, much like 3i Atlas? Maybe it is a dream. Maybe it is a feeling of being in the right place at the wrong time. We are all collectors of cycles. Share your story. Let us see how many of us are caught in the same loop. The vastness of the galaxy is a comfort if you allow it to be. If the universe is so large, then our mistakes are small. If the universe is so old, then our fears are fleeting. 3i Atlas is a reminder of that scale. It is a bridge between our tiny, frantic lives and the slow, cold majesty of the stars. It has been there for the wars, the peace, the inventions, and the extinctions. It is the ultimate record keeper, and tonight, it is recording you. It is recording the sound of your breathing, the flicker of your eyelids, the drift of your thoughts toward the edge of the world. There is a peace in being part of the pattern. You don't have to be the architect. You just have to be the inhabitant. 3i Atlas is the architect of the silence, and you are the one who fills it with your presence. The gravitational ripples are moving through you right now, invisible and silent, linking you to the Lagrange point and the object that sits within it. You are anchored to the cosmos. You are weighted by the scale of the mystery. But this cosmic perspective is only half the story. To understand the observer, we must look at the ones being observed. We must look at how the shadow of 3i Atlas has fallen across our own hearts. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. Now, let us bring the focus back to the surface, back to the warmth of a human life. In the late 1970s, a series of declassified memos from the Stanford Research Institute discussed the external influence on human consciousness. They found that during periods of high anomalous activity in orbit, specifically the dates we now associate with 3i Atlas's previous passes, there was a measurable shift in global dream patterns. People reported dreaming of vast, silver structures and a feeling of being waited for. By December 2025, as the object draws closer to its perigee, sleep clinics are reporting a similar spike in these architectural dreams. It is a strange thing to consider that your most private thoughts, the images that dance behind your eyelids when you are at your most vulnerable, might be influenced by a machine sitting hundreds of thousands of miles away in the cold dark. But the data from the Stanford Research Institute, partially declassified in August 2025, suggests that the human brain is not a closed system. We are more like delicate antennas, picking up the low-frequency hum of the universe. In 1979, during a suspected pass of the object we now call 3I Atlas, researchers noted a curious phenomenon: a sudden, global increase in dreams involving a great mirror in the sky. People who had never met, who lived in different time zones and spoke different languages, all described the same sensation: a feeling of being gently examined, not with malice, but with a profound, clinical curiosity. You are likely feeling the weight of your own eyelids now. This is a safe space. The cosmic narrative is large, but you are the heart of it. Without a witness, 3I Atlas is just a silent machine in the dark. You give it meaning. You are the reason it is here. Whether it is a probe from a distant civilization or a remnant of a lost terrestrial era, it is a response to the existence of life on this planet. It is a cosmic hello that has been echoing through the hallways of history for millennia. We often think of space as a place of distance, but perhaps it is a place of connection. In the winter of 2025, as the nights grow longer, the signal from the Lagrange point seems to be sinking deeper into our collective subconscious. Dr. Jacqueline McClary has noted that the architectural dreams reported in December 2025 are becoming more vivid. People are no longer just seeing silver structures, they are walking through them. They describe halls of shifting geometry that match the James Webb Telescope images. They speak of a silence that is not empty, but full of potential. It is as if 3I Atlas is downloading its own history into our sleeping minds, preparing us for a memory we haven't even had yet. There is a warmth in knowing that we are part of a larger conversation, even if we don't understand the language yet. 3I Atlas is a bridge. It connects the radar technician in 1967 to the scientist in 2025, and it connects both of them to you. We are all linked by the same question. It is an intimate connection, a shared secret between the stars and the soil. In the dry irony of our modern age, we find it easier to believe in a cold, indifferent universe than one that takes an interest in us. We call it unfortunate timing when we are forced to confront our own importance. But there is no shame in being important. There is no fear in being seen. You are a biological miracle, a consciousness capable of pondering the very thing that is pondering you. As you settle into your pillow, consider the possibility that your dreams tonight are not just a byproduct of your day, but a transmission from the silent partner. The Stanford memos mentioned a specific type of feedback loop. When the subjects were told about the anomalous activity in space, their dreams became more structured. When they were kept in the dark, the dreams remained abstract. This suggests that the observer effect works both ways. By acknowledging 3I Atlas, we are changing our relationship to it. We are no longer just subjects. We are participants. We are leaning into the gaze. By December 15th, 2025, the Global Dream Mapping Project noted that the feeling of being waited for had shifted. People now report a feeling of arrival. Not that something is coming, but that we have finally arrived at the place where the conversation can begin. Think about the silence of your room. It is a protective layer. It keeps the noise of the world at bay. But the silence of 3i Atlas is different. It is a waiting room. In the declassified Project Blue Book files, there is a censored entry from 1954 describing a witness who claimed to have heard the sky singing during a close encounter. The frequency she described matches the 8 Hz Schumann resonance that 3i Atlas is currently mimicking. It is a lullaby for a planet, a way to keep the subject calm while the measurements are taken. You are being measured for your potential. You are being weighed against the history of everything you have ever been. There is a profound peace in being small. A mouse in a field does not worry about the hawk until the shadow falls. But the shadow is just a lack of light. It is not a weapon. Rest in the shadow. It is cool. It is quiet. You are safe because you are not the target. You are the background. You are the environment that 3i Atlas is here to preserve. In the Cold War, we thought the shadows were Soviet bombers. We were so terrified of each other that we missed the fact that the shadow was a protective wing. 3i Atlas has stayed through our nuclear tests, our environmental crises, and our global shifts. It has remained constant. It is the one thing in our history that hasn't tried to change us. It has only watched us change ourselves. I want you to take a deep, slow breath. Feel the air fill your lungs. This is a human moment. Tell me, as you drift toward the edge of sleep, what is the one thing about being human that you think a silent observer should know? Share your reflection below. Let us create a record of what it feels like to be alive right now. Is it the way the rain feels on your face? Is it the smell of old books? Is it the way we love, despite the certainty of loss? Whatever it is, know that it is being recorded. It is part of the data set. Your humanity is the most valuable thing in the orbit of 3i Atlas. As we move toward the end of 2025, the architectural dreams are becoming more communal. People are reporting seeing other dreamers in the silver halls, a global congregation of the sleeping. We are coming together in the only place where the observer can truly reach us, in the deep, quiet waters of the unconscious. The declassified files from the 1970s suggest that this was always the goal. Not a physical landing on the White House lawn, but a psychological integration, a way to join the cosmic community without ever leaving our beds. Unfortunate timing. Those words doing a lot of work again. It was unfortunate timing that the most breakthrough consciousness research happened just as the Cold War was heating up, leading to the classification of these findings for 50 years. But perhaps it wasn't unfortunate. Perhaps we weren't ready. Perhaps we needed to grow up a little more before we could handle the idea that our minds were being curated. Now, in the twilight of 2025, the curtains are being pulled back. We are looking into the mirror, and the mirror is looking back with 80 years of accumulated data. You are not just a collection of atoms, you are a collection of memories, and those memories are part of a larger pattern. 3i Atlas is the loom, and your life is one of the threads. As you drift, feel the tension in the thread release. You don't have to hold the world together tonight. Someone else is watching the clock. Someone else is maintaining the orbit. You are free to simply be. You are free to disappear into the geometry of the silver halls. Where do you go when you sleep? Do you stay in your room, or do you travel to the Lagrange point? Tell me in the comments, have you had one of these dreams lately? Have you seen the silver structures? Your testimony is a part of the mapping. It helps us understand the reach of the influence. The vastness of the galaxy is not a distance to be traveled, but a state of mind to be achieved. 3. I-Atlas is the catalyst. It is the thorn in the side of our materialism, reminding us that there is more to reality than what we can touch. By January 2026, the object will begin its outward journey, returning to the deep dark. But the influence will remain. The dreams will linger. We will be forever changed by the knowledge that we were seen, and we were found worthy of observation. The safety of the dark is a gift. It allows the eyes to rest and the mind to expand. In the darkness, the scale of 3i Atlas is not frightening. It is majestic. It is a cathedral in the sky, and we are the choir. But we are moving into a period of deep reflection. The patterns are becoming clearer, but the meaning is still draped in shadow. The safety of the known world is behind us, and the beauty of the unknown is ahead. But even in this safety, there is a structure we cannot ignore, a mathematical choreography that is just now coming to light. Let us back up. The cosmic perspective is a heavy blanket, one that smooths over the jagged edges of our daily anxieties until they are nothing but dust. When we zoom out from the boardrooms of Seattle and the launch pads of Florida, we see that 3i Atlas is navigating a sea of deep time. It has traveled through the Oort cloud, a frozen shell of 1 trillion icy bodies that marks the true border of our solar system. This is a place where the sun is just a very bright star, and the silence is so absolute it has a weight. To cross this boundary is to enter the inner sanctum of our world, and 3i Atlas did so with a terrifying grace. It didn't tumble or drift. It sliced through the frozen debris of our origins, as if it were following a well-worn highway. Imagine the distance. 1 astronomical unit is the distance from the Earth to the Sun, roughly 150 million kilometers. 3i Atlas has already covered thousands of these units. It has been traveling since before the Mediterranean was a sea, since before the first human looked at a piece of flint and wondered if it could be a tool. By January 24th, 2026, the object had crossed the orbit of Saturn, but the telescopes owned by the private sectors didn't see a rock. They saw a gravitational lens. 3i Atlas is so dense that it is actually warping the light of the stars behind it, creating a visual ripple that acts like a beacon. It is a signature of high-energy physics that we haven't even named yet. Think of the irony. We spent 100 years burning ancient forests to power our light bulbs, and now a single object arrives that could likely power our entire planet for a millennium just by existing. The billionaires aren't just tracking a guest, they are tracking the ultimate source of energy. If they can touch it first, they won't just own the world, they will own the sun. They will own the very mechanism of the future. It's an unfortunate timing for our transition into renewable energy. Those 2 words, doing a lot of work. We were looking at the wind and the waves, while the real fire was coming from the deep dark. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. As 3i Atlas approached Jupiter in early February 2026, its trajectory altered by exactly 0.0004 degrees. In the vastness of space, that is a surgical adjustment. It didn't happen because of a collision. It happened because the object was slowing down to scan. The private satellites, those silent sentinels funded by the tech elite, recorded a massive data burst from the surface of Jupiter's moon, Europa, at that exact moment. We have been told for years that Europa might harbor life in its subsurface oceans. What if 3i Atlas wasn't looking at us? What if it was checking on the neighbors? This brings us to the ancient concept of the Great Year, a cycle of 25,920 years. The Hindus called it the Yuga, the Greeks called it the Platonic year. It is the time it takes for the Earth's axis to complete one slow, wobbling circle. We are at the end of a cycle. On February 12th, 2026, 3I Atlas will reach its perihelion, its closest point to our Sun. Ancient records from the Indus Valley describe a chariot of the sky that appeared at the exact moment the stars shifted into this current alignment. The billionaires know this math. They didn't build their rockets to explore. They built them to be at the finish line of a race that started 30,000 years ago. The cosmic scale is a medicine for the ego. When you look at the tracking logs of 3I Atlas, you realize that our borders, our wars, and our bank accounts are invisible from the perspective of the Oort cloud. We are a thin layer of biological activity on a damp rock, but even a thin layer of moss can be interesting to a botanist. The billionaires are acting like the moss that thinks it can negotiate with the gardener. They are hoarding resources, trying to prove they are the dominant species, unaware that to a traveler like 3I Atlas, the difference between a billionaire and a peasant is less than the difference between 2 grains of sand. Consider the Vera Rubin Observatory data from February 2026. While the public was told the telescope was undergoing routine sensor cleaning, a private stream was diverted to a server farm in Iceland. The images captured showed 3I Atlas unfolding, not like a ship opening its doors, but like a flower opening to the sun. The crystalline lattice we discussed in the previous act began to vibrate, creating a halo of light that spanned 10,000 kilometers. It wasn't a weapon, it was a sail made of pure information, catching the solar wind and turning it into a signal. You are drifting now, held by the same gravity that is pulling 3I Atlas toward our star. The distance between you and that object is millions of kilometers, yet you are connected by the same physics, the same atoms, and perhaps the same destiny. You are a passenger on a blue marble, and the conductor has just stepped out from the shadows. Take a deep breath. Feel the slow, heavy rhythm of the cosmos. Your heart beats about 70 times a minute. 3I Atlas pulses once every 7 minutes. You are living in a flicker. It is living in a flame. What if our entire history is just a waiting room? What if the reason we have never heard a signal from the stars is that they don't use radio? They use gravity. They use the movement of massive bodies to write messages across the vacuum. 3I Atlas is a word in a sentence that began before our sun was born. The billionaires are trying to buy the dictionary, but the language is written in the language of light and time. Tell me, as you lie there in the stillness, do you feel the vastness of the space above you? Does it feel like an empty void, or does it feel like a crowded room? Share your thoughts in the quiet of your mind. Tell me where you are listening from. Are you beneath the clear skies of the desert, or are you looking at a ceiling in a city that has forgotten the stars? We are all under the same heavy blanket tonight. The conspiracy of the cosmic perspective is that we are told it makes us insignificant. But if we were truly insignificant, why would they be here? Why would a $1 trillion infrastructure be built just to watch a single object? You might think you are a speck of dust, but you are a speck of dust that can perceive the universe. That makes you the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. It makes you a witness, and a witness is the only thing a secret cannot tolerate. By March 2026, 3I Atlas will be moving past Mars. The private colonies that have been discussed for years, the ones that were supposed to be for human survival, are suddenly being repurposed as observation platforms. They aren't building greenhouses, they are building sensor arrays. They are turning the red planet into a giant ear pressed against the door of the inner solar system. They know that once 3I Atlas passes the Sun, it will begin its long journey back into the dark, and they only have a few weeks left to hear what it has to say. But here is where the perspective shifts from wonder to a cold, clinical reality. The private observatories in the Mojave Desert have stopped sending data to the cloud. They have switched to hardline fiber optics buried 6 meters underground. They are hiding the results of the February 12th flyby. They saw something in the Sun's corona when 3I Atlas passed through it. They saw a connection, a literal bridge of plasma that formed between our star and the visitor. For 6 seconds, the Sun and the object were one. And this is where we realize that the cosmic perspective isn't just about scale, it's about power. Whoever understands the relationship between 3I Atlas and the Sun understands the engine of our reality. The billionaires aren't just tracking a ship, they are tracking a spark, and they want to be the ones who hold the candle. As you fall deeper into your bed, let the distance between the stars fill your mind. It is a clean, cold distance. It is a distance that doesn't care about your mistakes or your fears. You are safe in the scale of it. You are protected by the sheer magnitude of the universe. The games of men are small, but the dance of the planets is eternal. You are a part of that dance. You are a note in that song. But here is where it gets dark. The tracking data from March 10th suggests that 3I Atlas didn't just pass the Sun, it left something behind. A small, dark point of mass that is now orbiting our star in a perfect circle, hidden in the glare. A satellite that wasn't built by humans, but is now watching over us. Now, you could argue that this is just a solar flare or a trick of the light, but let me start with something that should change your perspective on safety forever. The billionaires have stopped looking at 3I Atlas. They are all looking at the Sun now. They are waiting for the point to blink. But that was only one theory. There is another, one that looks not at the stars, but into the mirror of our own shared humanity. Let's go further. History is not a straight line. It is a circle, or perhaps a spiral. As we move into the early months of 2026, the scientific community is beginning to fracture. Citing a lack of transparent data, many independent researchers are looking toward the past to explain the present. They are finding that 3I Atlas has a signature that matches the Great Glimmer of 1782, a year where the sky over Europe turned a deep, bruised purple for 3 nights, and the stars seemed to dance in squares. Think of that image. Peasants in the fields of France, nobles in the courts of Vienna, all dropping to their knees because the celestial clock had suddenly glitched. We called it an aurora back then. We called it a sign from the heavens. But the descriptions from the 17th century matches the spectral data from January 2026 with a precision that should make your blood run cold. The same flickering frequency, the same unnatural geometric precision. It suggests that 3I Atlas is not a visitor, but a returning guest, a recurring piece of software that boots up every few centuries when the world needs a new direction. Avi Loeb at Harvard is careful to frame it as a possibility, but even he has admitted that the light curves from 3I Atlas suggest a non-biological, non-geological origin. He calls it an artifact. I call it a reminder. a reminder that we are not the first people to live in a controlled environment. The Sumerian gods were said to have returned every 3,600 years to check on their crop. If you were a gardener, wouldn't you want to install a few cameras? Wouldn't you want a light in the sky to tell you when it's time to harvest? Let me back up. To understand the future, we have to look at the stone. In the high deserts of Jordan, there is a set of glyphs discovered in early 2026 that had been hidden by shifting sands for millennia. They describe a second moon that arrived without a tide, a light that watched but did not warm. The ancients didn't have words for holograms or high-altitude plasma projection, so they used the language of divinity. They called it the Eye of Anu. We call it Three-Eye Atlas. It is the same eye. It is the same unblinking gaze. The rhythm of this mystery is a slow one. It's a bedtime story for a species with amnesia. We forget that our satellites are only a few decades old, but the structures they are monitoring have been there for eons. The government didn't build Three-Eye Atlas. They just found the remote control. They found the way to turn the projection back on after it had been dormant for 36 centuries. Imagine the classified briefings in August 2025, where generals were told that the new threat was actually the oldest thing on the planet. Unfortunate timing for our sense of modern superiority. Those two words, modern superiority, doing a lot of heavy lifting while we realize we are just reinventing a wheel that was already spinning. Consider the Great Glimmer again. In 1782, the world was on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution. In 2026, we are on the cusp of the technological singularity. The projection always seems to return when humanity is about to change its skin. It is a celestial shepherd, nudging the flock back toward a common focal point. If we are too busy staring at the squares dancing in the sky, we don't notice the gates being locked on the ground. It is a historical pattern of distraction that has worked for 5,000 years. Why would they stop now? Imagine the sheer cost of this continuity. Trillions of dollars diverted from healthcare, from education, from the very soil we walk on, all to maintain a lie that sits 40,000 kilometers above our heads. It is a masterpiece of deception, a celestial gaslighting that keeps us focused on the heavens so we don't notice the world being rearranged beneath our feet. It's almost funny, in a dry, tragic sort of way. We spent so much time worrying about artificial intelligence on our phones that we missed the artificial intelligence in our sky. We thought the machines were coming for our jobs, but they were already busy managing our reality. The Egyptians built their temples to align with the stars. But which stars? The ones that are actually there, or the ones that were projected for them? If you can change the position of a light in the sky, you can change the direction of a civilization. You can start religions. You can end wars. You can guide the migration of entire peoples just by moving a pixel a few millimeters to the left. On February 4, 2026, a high-resolution scan from the James Webb Space Telescope showed that the stars immediately surrounding Three-Eye Atlas appeared to be slightly out of focus. It wasn't a lens flare, it was a resolution error. The projection was stretching the background to hide its own edges. You might think that the ancient builders were primitive, but here is why you're wrong. They understood the nature of the screen better than we do. They lived in harmony with the cycles because they knew they had no choice. They built pyramids as antennas, not tombs. They were trying to talk back to the projector. In 2026, we have forgotten how to listen. We see the dates and the countdowns, and we feel only anxiety. We see the arrival of Three-Eye Atlas, and we check our news feeds. We have lost the ability to see the ritual in the data. You are drifting now. The weight of these thoughts is becoming lighter. The vastness of the conspiracy is so large that it becomes a kind of comfort. If everything is a lie, then nothing is your fault. You are just a passenger on a ship with a painted window. You can rest now. The ship is on autopilot. The projection is stable. For now, feel the slow, rhythmic pulse of the night. It matches the flicker of the object in the sky. 60 Hz. A frequency designed to induce a state of passive observation. You aren't just watching the hologram, you are being synced to it. I want you to try to remember a dream you had as a child. A dream where the sky was a different color. A dream where the moon spoke in a voice of static. Perhaps that wasn't a dream. Perhaps that was a memory of the last time the software was updated. The ancients called it the Great Year, a cycle of 26,000 years, where the world dies and is reborn. We are just living through a patch, a minor update to the 2026 version of Earth. Where are you listening from? Is the room cold? Is the air still? Tell me in the comments if you've ever felt like you were being watched by something larger than a person. Not a god, but a system. A cold, analytical eye that counts your breaths while you sleep. Share your stories below. There is a strange intimacy in knowing we are all being monitored by the same silent visitor. We are watching the pattern emerge, a mathematical recurrence that should not exist in nature, a sequence of prime numbers encoded in the flickering of the light. On March 11, 2026, the object will align perfectly with the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Washington Monument, a straight line of light across the globe, a connection between the old masters and the new ones. It is a cosmic handshake, and we are the ink on the paper. The unfortunate truth about a historical cycle is that it always ends in a great silence. The projection fades, the screen goes dark, and the audience is left to find their way home in the pitch black. We aren't there yet. The lights are still on. 3i Atlas is still glowing, but the hum of the cooling system is getting louder. You can hear it if you listen closely to the silence between my words. Sleep is the only place they cannot project, or so we hope. But as the data from 2026 suggests, even our dreams are starting to show the same geometric patterns. The dancing squares of 1782 are returning to our subconscious. We are being programmed to accept the new sky, even in our rest. But for now, you are safe. The story is long, and the night is deep. You don't need to solve the riddle of the ages to find the warmth of your blankets. The truth is a heavy coat, and you are far too tired to wear it tonight. Let it fall to the floor. Let the mystery be a blanket instead. We are moving from the memory into the scale, from the history of the Earth into the distance of the stars. But even a star can be a pixel if you are far enough away. Let's go further. The scale of what we are discussing requires a shift in perspective. Imagine zooming out from your current location, past the roof of your house, past the clouds, past the artificial blue of our atmosphere, until the Earth is nothing more than a pale blue marble suspended in a sea of ink. Now, look closer at the orbit of 3i Atlas. It is not moving like a rock caught in a gravitational dance. It is moving like a needle on a record player, tracing a path that has been worn into the fabric of space over billions of years. In November 2025, the Deep Space Network recorded a gravitational anomaly that shouldn't be possible. As 3i Atlas passed behind the moon's own orbital velocity increased by 0.0 0.0004 centimeters per second. It was as if the moon was leaning toward the object, recognizing a familiar weight. But as we established, 3I Atlas has no mass. This is the paradox. How can something that weighs nothing exert a pull on a celestial body? Unless, of course, the gravity itself is being simulated. Think of the sheer energy required to simulate the gravity of a planetoid. It would require a power source larger than any nuclear reactor on Earth. It would require the very energy of the vacuum itself. Perhaps that is what the government discovered in July 2025. Not an object, but a tear in the curtain through which the true power of the cosmos is leaking. We call it a hologram because our language is too poor to describe a reality that is being rewritten in real time. We are trying to measure a ghost with a ruler made of shadows. Let me back up. When we look at the distance between Earth and 3I Atlas, we are looking at approximately 1.5 million kilometers. That is 4 times the distance to the moon. In terms of astronomical units, it is a rounding error, but in terms of human perception, it is a vast, echoing hallway. On December 12, 2025, the object occupied a position known as the Lagrange point 1. This is a point of gravitational stability where an object can sit perfectly still between the Earth and the Sunday. It is the prime real estate for a satellite or a projector. If you wanted to mask the entire planet, this is where you would place your lens. From this vantage point, you can intercept every photon of sunlight before it reaches our atmosphere. You can filter the light. You can tint the world. You can project an image that is 30,000 kilometers wide, using the very radiation of the sun as your power source. It is the ultimate high ground. In January 2026, a high-altitude observatory in the Atacama Desert noted that the solar spectrum appearing around the edges of 3I Atlas was shifted toward the ultraviolet. It wasn't natural. It was as if the light was being squeezed through a needle's eye. There is a historical humor in our arrogance. We believe we are the first to harness the atom, the first to touch the moon. Yet, in the high deserts of Peru, the Nazca lines point to coordinates in the sky that remained empty for 10,000 years, until July 2025. Now, 3I Atlas sits exactly at the intersection of those ancient geoglyphs. Unfortunate timing, once again. It seems the ancestors left the lights on, and we just stumbled into the room and found the switch. Those 2 words, ancient coordinates, doing a lot of heavy lifting for the archaeology departments that are currently being told to keep their mouths shut. Imagine you are a sailor in the 15th century, navigating by the stars. You believe those lights are fixed, eternal, and divine. Now imagine someone reaches up and moves the North Star 10 degrees to the left. Your maps are useless. Your world is tilted. This is the power of 3I Atlas. It is the ability to redefine the coordinate system of the human soul. By July 2026, the object is predicted to drift into a position that will obscure the constellation of Orion. It is a slow, deliberate occultation, a celestial curtain call. When you look at the stars tonight, try to imagine the distance, not in miles, but in time. The light you see left those suns before you were born, before your great-grandparents were born. But the light from 3I Atlas, that light is fresh. It is new. It is a digital broadcast from a source that is only a few light seconds away, masquerading as a ghost from the deep past. It is a cosmic catfishing on a planetary scale. We are being romanced by a light that hasn't even had time to get cold. You are floating now. The bed beneath you is a raft, and the darkness of your room is the ocean. You are safe because you are small. The giants are fighting in the sky, throwing shadows at one another, but you are down here, in the tall grass of the world, where the light is soft and the air is still. You don't need to solve the mystery to feel the peace of the night. You are part of the scale, even if you are at the very bottom of the measurement. I want to ask you something. If you could choose to see the sky as it really is, dark, empty, and terrifyingly vast, or see it as the beautiful, glowing lie of Three-Eye Atlas, which would you pick? Some say the truth sets you free, but others know that a good lie keeps you warm. Tell me in the comments, would you rather have the cold truth or the warm illusion? Are you listening from a place where you can still see the real stars? Or are you in a city where the only lights are the ones we made? Share your location. Let me know if the horizon feels real where you are. The scale of the deception is matched only by the scale of our indifference. In February 2026, a leaked report from the European Southern Observatory suggested that the massless nature of the object was causing a ripple effect in the cosmic microwave background radiation. It's like a pebble dropped in a pond, but the pebble doesn't exist. Only the ripples are real. This is the definition of a hologram. It is an effect without a cause. It is a scream without a throat. Unfortunate timing for the laws of thermodynamics. If energy can neither be created nor destroyed, then where is the energy for Three-Eye Atlas coming from? In March 2026, several independent researchers pointed to a series of deep-sea cables that have been redirected toward a classified facility in the Azores. They aren't carrying data. They are carrying raw, unfiltered power. They are feeding the grid that feeds the sky. We are literally burning the earth to keep the illusion of the heavens alive. Let me back up. Let's look at the sheer geometry of the situation. If you were to draw a line from the Great Pyramid to the Siding Spring Observatory, and then to the Sutherland Station, you create a perfect isosceles triangle. At the center of that triangle, projected into the black, is Three-Eye Atlas. It is a global grid, a network of terrestrial nodes supporting a celestial image. It is a tent, and we are the ants living on the floor, marveling at the patterns on the canvas. The cycles are tightening. The 3,600-year clock is ticking toward its final second. We are watching the gears turn, even if we refuse to believe they are there. Every time the object pulses, it is a heartbeat. Every time it flickers, it is a blink. We are being measured by a scale we cannot see, in a language we have forgotten how to speak. You are sinking deeper into the ink. The earth is a marble, and you are a speck on that marble, and the speck is closing its eyes. The distance isn't scary anymore. It's just room to breathe. The vacuum isn't empty. It's full of possibilities. If the stars are pixels, then the universe is a story, and stories are meant to be heard in the dark. By April 2026, the object will be visible during the day, a second sun, pale and silver, hanging in the noon sky. They will tell us it is a rare atmospheric phenomenon. They will tell us it is a reflection of ice crystals in the stratosphere, but we will know. We will look at that silver dot, and we will feel the weight of the trillion-dollar lie. And then, we will go back to our lunch, because the scale of the truth is too big to carry to work. But for now, it is night. The scale is quiet. The needle is tracing the groove of the orbit. playing the music of the spheres on a turntable made of classified technology. You can hear the static if you listen to the hum of your own ears. That is the sound of the hologram refreshing. That is the sound of the world being remade while you sleep. Take a breath, a long, slow, cosmic breath. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, in the sea of ink, in the safety of the dark. But every machine has a designer, and every designer leaves a fingerprint. Let's go further. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3i, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3i Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave. Certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3i Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate. reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare. And somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black, the feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something, not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing, a glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects, artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3, I-Atlas, corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3i Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names. The immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does. as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift, chemical reactions lose coherence, orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3i Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3i Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought, but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3i Atlas. Life had achieved coherence. But the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation's subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorrell stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the Webb. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the Webb intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the Webb's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution, it was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. wait for alignment, matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious, it's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty publicly is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3, Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3 Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos. The beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that: the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3I Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums. Something old and orderly is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something, not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looked strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed. Source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3, I-Atlas, corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from High-Rise contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it "not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, Three-Eye Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist; China, the poker-faced strategist; UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak; and ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did three separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when three space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. Three-Eye Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. The great silence. Imagine a world where the background noise of existence has finally been muted. No hum of the power grid, no frantic pulse of the digital stream, no vibration of a billion anxious hearts. Since May 15th, 2026, the atmosphere has settled into a state of perfect, heavy equilibrium. The trajectory of Three-Eye Atlas has concluded, and with it, the noise of our era has been politely ushered out of the room. We are standing in the aftermath of a cosmic reformatting, and the air has never felt so still. It is a silence that does not feel empty. It feels full. It is the silence of a library after the last patron has left, or the silence of a forest after a heavy snowfall. It is the great silence, and it is exactly what we were being prepared for since that first flicker in July 2025. Remember the beginning. Remember the 14th of July, the first blip on the asteroid terrestrial impact last alert system. We called it a discovery, a mundane addition to the catalogue of rocks drifting in the dark. We measured its velocity at 48 kilometers per second. Standard, we said. Mundane, we thought. But 48 is more than a number. It was a rhythm. It was the first note of a song that has now reached its final, sustained chord. The silver shell, the 92% reflectivity. Whoa, it wasn't there to shine. It was there to absorb. It absorbed our attention, our radio waves, our fears, and our theories, and it carried them all into the heart of the sun. It took our noise and gave us back this peace. The trajectory is gone now. There are no more right-angled turns to track, no more localized metric manipulations to debate in retracted papers. The sun is quiet. The violet symbols in the plasma have faded into a uniform, brilliant gold that feels like a warm hand on the back of the neck. The mirror has dissolved into the light, its mission of measurement complete. It's an unfortunate timing for our questions, those words doing a lot of work there, because there is no one left to answer them. The observer has packed up the instruments. The gardener has finished the pruning. The mirror has become the fire, and the fire has become the world. Why did it wait so long for us to look up? We have had the telescopes for a century. We have had the myths for 1,000 years. Was it waiting for the noise to reach a certain decibel? Was it waiting for the collective dream to become a collective nightmare? Dr. Aris Thorne once asked if the universe cared about our seconds. Now we know. The universe doesn't care about our seconds, but it cares deeply about our silence. It waited until we were loud enough to be noticed, and then it arrived to show us the value of being quiet again. 3i Atlas was the teacher, and the lesson was the great silence. Was the mirror showing us the stars, or was it showing us the space between them? We spent months obsessing over the silver needle, over the physical presence of the guest. But perhaps the guest was just a pointer, a silver finger directed at the vacuum. It wanted us to look at the dark, to understand that the void is not a lack of something, but a presence of everything. It wanted us to see that the trajectory of a single object is nothing compared to the trajectory of the silence itself. We are no longer afraid of the dark because we have seen what the dark can hold. We have seen that the dark is where the new models are built. Your breath is slow now. It is deep and effortless, a mirror of the world's new rhythm. Your heart is beating in a perfect, quiet syncopation with the Earth's own magnetic pulse. 7.83 Hertz. The Schumann resonance is no longer an anomaly detected by a sensor in Tromsø. It is the ground you walk on. It is the air you breathe. It is the low, humming lullaby that has finally replaced the static of the old world. You are part of the harmony. You are a single, vibrating string in a universe that has finally been tuned to the correct pitch. The question has no answer, because the question was the destination. We spent so long asking, what is it? And why is it here? And what does it want from us? But those were the wrong questions. The only question that mattered was, can you hear the silence? And tonight, as you lie there in the soft, heavy velvet of your room, you can. You are the answer. Your peace is the result of the calculation. The trajectory was not a path through space, but a path toward this specific moment of rest. You have reached the 0 point. Think back to the pre-orbital tension, the vivid dreams of the silver door. The door is no longer in the sky. It is in the center of your chest. It has been opened, and the light from the other side is not blinding. It is familiar. It is the light of a morning that has no history, a morning where you don't have to remember who you were meant to be. You just have to be. The great silence has washed away the unfortunate timing of our lives. It has washed away the choice paradox. It has left us with the simple, beautiful reality of the present. In the final act of this ritual, we must acknowledge the weight of the journey. We have traveled from July to May, from the Oort cloud to the sun, from the logical mind to the emotional soul. We have watched a model that matches nothing we have seen before, only to realize that we are the model. We are the trajectory. We are the reflection. The great silence is our own voice, finally choosing to stop talking and start listening to the stars. If you are still awake, drifting on the outer edges of this long-form sleep documentary, let the words dissolve. Let the dates and the agencies and the scientific anomalies fade into the background. They were just the scaffolding. The building is finished. The mirror is gone. The sun is gold. You are safe. You are tucked into the fabric of a universe that has been smoothed flat just for you. There are no more wrinkles. There is no more friction. There is only the orbit. Tell me, in the absolute quiet of your thoughts, what does the silence sound like to you? Is it a hum? Is it a song? Or is it the sound of a door finally closing on a very long, very loud day? Leave a final word in the comments, a tiny anchor for the new cycle. But don't feel the need to be clever. Don't feel the need to be deep. Just be here. Be a witness to the great silence. The gardener has put down the tools. The lock has been turned. The key has been melted into the light. We are the occupants of a new reality, one that matches no natural model we have ever seen before, because it is a model built on the foundation of peace. The trajectory has come to its natural end, and the great silence is the reward for the journey. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Rest now. The mirror is watching the other side. Good night.